Before we get to the meat of the video, I just want to let you know about the IM Premium service. Sign up for IM Premium and you'll receive new and exclusive content delivered to your inbox for just $4 a month. This month I've added a new video about the doomsday cult pronouncements of Greta Thunberg.
How dare you!
To sign up, simply visit independentman.com.au/subscribe. Link in the description. In The Coddling of the American Mind, co-author Greg Lukianoff talks of his own battle with depression and the cognitive behavioural therapy techniques that helped him overcome it. Basically, CBT techniques teach you to recognise when you are engaging in various cognitive distortions, such as catastrophizing. That is, to present a situation as considerably worse than it actually is. For example, a student thinking that if they fail a quiz, they'll fail the class and be kicked out of school and they'll never get a job. Taking something that might be a temporary setback, failing a quiz, and extrapolating it into a disaster. And Lukianoff observed that in recent years, rather than universities trying to break this toxic type of thinking, they've actually been encouraging it. Trigger warnings are a perfect example, that students need to be forewarned about topics or ideas that might make them feel uncomfortable. The problem is they don't actually work. According to a recent study from Harvard, they can undermine students' beliefs in their own resilience and increase feelings of vulnerability. But catastrophizing is not confined to the university, it's all around us. Greta Thunberg exemplifies what it means to catastrophize by taking a real issue, climate change, and catastrophizing it into doomsday end-of-world scenarios that are then picked up by useful idiots like Extinction Rebellion.
People are suffering. People are dying.
Yes, people are dying and suffering, as they always have. But is that because of extreme weather events brought on by climate change? No. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Deaths from weather-related disasters are at record lows and down 95% from a century ago. But these exaggerated claims seem to, more often than not, go unquestioned. We live in an age of asserted truths, and if you ask for evidence, well, then that's just proof of your bigotry. That's the approach that Black Lives Matter took. Their entire narrative was based on catastrophizing the relatively rare instances of black people being shot by police into claims of a racist police force systematically targeting black people. None of the facts supported this narrative at all. When you take into account the amount of violent crime perpetrated by blacks in the US, if anything, black people are underrepresented in police shootings. But hey, don't let the facts get in the way of a catastrophized narrative. The domestic violence industry has used this tactic for years. If you believe their catastrophized bullshit, you'd swear women are under siege. They can't catch public transport or walk home alone at night without being assaulted or harassed. One woman a week is killed by a current or former partner in Australia, we're told. But given that we live in a country of 25 million people, half of whom are women, that makes intimate partner homicide a relatively rare event. The murder rate in Australia is about 1 in 100,000. For women, it's 0.8 in 100,000, whilst for men, it's about 1.2. About twice as many men than women are murdered every year, and men are much more likely, about 10 times more likely, to be murdered by a complete stranger than women. So when you run into a domestic violence catastrophizer going on about how terrible violence against women is, it's worth asking them compared to what? Because if you think violence against women is terrible, surely you must be horrified by violence against men. Now, on some level, all this catastrophizing is understandable. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Exaggerate your victimhood and the gullible media and politicians will scramble to assert their virtue for your cause. That's not to say that all catastrophizers are doing it for cynical purposes. Some clearly are, but others genuinely believe they're catastrophic scenarios. A lot of times because they're just ignorant of the facts. Take the following case, for example. This was a recent panel discussion called the Challenge of Identifying, which included Maajid Nawaz, Douglas Murray, and some other guy who, if he hadn't been there, no one would have noticed. It was an object lesson in how not to run a panel. The discussion went for about 33 minutes, then they had about 45 minutes of questions, which included the usual type of self-absorbed assholes that make long-winded 3 or 4 minute statements, often without a question. Pro tip to panel organisers: sometimes audience participation isn't a good idea, especially when you have people of the calibre of Douglas Murray and Maajid Nawaz on stage. Anyway, let's have a listen to the last part of this woke question directed at Murray.
do you think that it's a form of privilege to be able to be exhausted by said movement, any movement? Because I think it is. Because you may be exhausted by the gay movement, but there's still black trans women being murdered daily in America for being trans. So maybe it really means something to them when it's got to the point of exhaustion for you, because maybe you are in a position of privilege as a white gay man. For those black trans women who are dying daily, it's not exhausted. It hasn't even reached them yet. So that's why I'm interested about this thing about when it's too much and who decides it is, and if there is privilege involved in that, and be able to even mutter those words and sit here and talk about it.
So just in case you didn't pick that up, amongst all the identitarian wokeness, she made a claim that black trans women are being murdered daily in the United States. Now I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that pandering liberals would have let that comment slide. But listen to Murray's reaction.
Let's have an answer from Douglas first.
That's why I completely dispute it. Completely, it's, if I may say so, a typical example of the catastrophizing that black trans women are being killed daily in America. That's just not the case. None of the stats suggest that that's the case. But if you can show me that every single day in America a black trans woman is killed, I look forward to you to give me. No, because it's just been well.
Okay, well, let's take a black men that are being shot by police.
It's another issue, though. Yeah. I just wanted to pick up on the first one because it's the first one you did. Okay. One way of doing this is to catastrophize everything, is to say your fight has to be the fight of X group because they're being killed on a daily basis. And I'm suggesting maybe this is not a wise way to, among other things, bring society together.
And that's exactly what you have to do. You have to call this bullshit out. These people are bathing in a pool of their own ignorance. And notice she just pivoted to black people being shot by police, which I imagine she's equally as ignorant about. Just on the trans issue, the New York Times ran an article at the end of September titled 18 Transgender Killings This Year Raise Fears of an Epidemic. In the United States this year, at least 18 transgender people, most of them transgender women of colour, have been killed in a wave of violence that the American Medical Association has declared an epidemic. In the same article, they note that last year at least 26 were killed. So given that 18 had been killed through September of this year and that rate is maintained for the rest of the year, that would be about 24 in 2019. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that they were all black trans women. That would be equal to 2 per month or 1 every 15 days. So to say that black trans women are being murdered daily is a wild exaggeration, and to do so is counterproductive because now people just think you're a hysterical idiot, a liar, ignorant, or all three. Now, I know that not everybody, when confronted with a catastrophizer, can recall statistics off the top of their head, but it's at least worth asking for evidence for their claims before buying into their delusions. And yes, I understand that there are people that are legitimately suffering from anxiety and depression that catastrophize and are in need of cognitive behavioural therapy to make them more resilient. But catastrophizers pushing political agendas need to be called on their bullshit. As usual, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you next time.